New Dillon Gabriel trade rumor from The Athletic has just dropped, and then Sports Illustrated has 3 Gabriel trade destinations, and The Athletic gives us one more for a total of 4. But this wouldn't excite anyone, but Gabriel was a third-round pick a year ago. Whether he should have been is another story. But the Browns quarterback room suddenly busy with Shedeur Sanders' presence, Deshaun Watson's return, and the addition of rookie Dillon Green. Gabriel did throw for 7 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in 6 starts as a rookie.
Everybody loves a good trade rumor, especially when it involves a quarterback. That's exactly what's happening with Dillon Gabriel right now. His name keeps showing up in articles, podcasts, and fan discussions, and the question is getting louder by the day. Could the Browns actually move him before the season begins? At first, it sounds far-fetched. After all, Cleveland spent a third-round pick on him just a year ago. But once you look at how crowded this quarterback room has become, the idea suddenly doesn't seem as impossible as it did a few weeks ago. Recent speculation has centered on whether Cleveland's depth at quarterback could eventually force a difficult roster decision, even though there is no credible report that Gabriel is actively being shopped.
Dillon Gabriel is the obvious odd man out. He's the trade candidate in this quarterback room. They can't move Watson. His contract's basically untradeable. And who's trading for Watson at this point? Dillon Green, 6th-round pick. Too much of a project, and so it's between Shedeur and Gabriel if the Browns don't want 4 quarterbacks on the roster.
The interesting part is how quickly this conversation started. It wasn't because Gabriel struggled on the field, or because the Browns publicly lost confidence in him. Instead, it was the numbers that caught everyone's attention. Cleveland suddenly found itself with a crowded quarterback room, and history tells us teams rarely carry more quarterbacks than they need into the regular season. That's why analysts started asking whether one of them could become available. Gabriel's name naturally entered the discussion because he's still young, inexpensive, and has enough upside to interest another team looking for quarterback depth. But here's where the story gets more interesting. Just because people are talking about a trade doesn't mean the Browns are eager to make one. In fact, there's been no reliable report saying Andrew Berry or Todd Monken are actively trying to move Gabriel. Most of the speculation is coming from outside the building. Writers are looking at the roster, seeing several quarterbacks competing for snaps, and wondering if Cleveland could eventually turn that surplus into draft capital. That's a very different conversation than saying a trade is already being discussed behind closed doors. If you're Andrew Berry, you also have to think about the timing. Trading a quarterback in July sounds simple until you remember how unpredictable an NFL season can be. One injury can completely change a team's plans overnight. The Browns learned that lesson the hard way over the last few seasons, cycling through multiple starters and constantly searching for stability under center. Giving away quality depth too early could solve one problem while creating a much bigger one a few weeks later. That's why teams are usually patient before making decisions like this, especially at the most important position in football.
Shedeur could very easily win the quarterback 1 job. Gabriel's the one that doesn't fit what Todd Monken likes to do, his system. Quite frankly, it was awful watching Gabriel play football last year. And so there's much more value having Shedeur. Even if Shedeur's the backup, I feel much more comfortable him getting in the game than I do Dillon Gabriel.
At the same time, it's easy to understand why other teams would at least make the call. Gabriel left college as one of the most productive quarterbacks in NCAA history. He started games at UCF, Oklahoma, and Oregon. He handled different offensive systems and showed he could adapt to new coaches throughout his career. Those aren't guarantees of NFL success, but they are qualities that front offices value. If a team suddenly loses a backup quarterback during camp, Gabriel becomes a much more interesting option than waiting for someone to hit the waiver wire. That's why several analysts have already floated potential landing spots. The Atlanta Falcons have been mentioned because of coaching connections. The Detroit Lions and Tampa Bay Buccaneers have also come up as logical destinations if they decide to add another young quarterback. None of those scenarios are based on confirmed negotiations. They're simply football fits that make sense if Cleveland ever reaches the point where it believes moving Gabriel is the right decision. The important thing to remember is that there's a huge difference between a realistic possibility and an active trade discussion.
It is hard to envision a place where Dillon is taken seriously at this point. So just based on snaps, camp snaps, practice snaps, all that stuff so far, we'll see when training camp and the preseason gets here. And there's certainly space for Gabriel to play really well and earn more consideration, but it does feel like a 2-guy race right now. But as you get into the season and who knows where the season goes.
And maybe that's what makes this story so fascinating. The Browns don't have to trade Dillon Gabriel. They aren't under pressure to make a move before training camp. But if another team comes calling with the right offer, Cleveland has to ask itself one difficult question. Is Gabriel more valuable as insurance on the roster? Or could he help this franchise even more by bringing back a draft pick or another player who fills a bigger need? That's the question that could quietly shape the rest of the offseason, and it's exactly why these rumors refuse to disappear. The biggest reason these rumors have picked up steam is that quarterback value changes almost overnight in the NFL. One injury during training camp can send a front office scrambling for help. We've seen it happen almost every season. A team that wasn't even thinking about adding a quarterback suddenly becomes desperate, and that's when trade calls start happening. If Dillon Gabriel puts together a strong preseason, his value could be much higher in August than it is today. That's why the Browns don't have to rush into any decision. Waiting could give them more leverage, especially if another team finds itself in a difficult situation.
With these practices, it allows us to really be intentional about what we want to see. You see the ability of the quarterback to be able to process early, process post-snap, react to what the defense is doing, and we want to see how quickly they can react to a defense without a ton of game planning and pre-game studying going into it.
There's another side to this that people don't talk about enough. What if Gabriel simply outplays expectations? Every year, at least one young quarterback surprises coaches once the games become real. Practice is one thing, preseason games are another. That's where decision-making, pocket awareness, and composure become much easier to evaluate. If Gabriel performs well while another quarterback struggles, the conversation changes immediately. Suddenly, the Browns aren't deciding whether to move him, they're deciding whether they can afford to let him go at all. That creates an interesting situation for Andrew Berry. He's built a reputation for thinking long-term instead of reacting to the moment. If he believes Gabriel can eventually become a reliable NFL starter, trading him too early could become a decision that follows the franchise for years. On the other hand, if the coaching staff believes another quarterback has clearly moved ahead of him, then maximizing Gabriel's value while it's still high becomes a smart piece of roster management. That's the balancing act every general manager faces, and there usually isn't a perfect answer. The timing of a potential move matters just as much as the return. Trading Gabriel before preseason would mean making a decision with limited information. Trading him after a few strong performances could increase his value, especially if another team suddenly needs help. That's why many around the league believe patience is the smarter approach. Let the competition play out, see how every quarterback performs under real pressure, then decide whether keeping Gabriel or moving him gives the Browns a better chance to succeed over the next few seasons. There's also the bigger picture that Browns fans shouldn't ignore. This isn't really just about Dillon Gabriel, it's about Cleveland's long-term quarterback plan. For years, this franchise has been searching for stability at the most important position in sports. Every decision they make now has to fit into that bigger vision. If they trade Gabriel, it likely means they're confident in the quarterback still on the roster. If they keep him, it suggests they believe depth is more valuable than an extra draft pick. Either way, the decision says a lot about how this front office views its future. So, could this trade actually happen? The answer is yes, it's possible, but that's very different from saying it's likely. Right now, there are no credible reports that the Browns are actively shopping Dillon Gabriel. Most of the conversation is being driven by roster math, quarterback depth, and analysts trying to predict what Cleveland might do if another team comes calling. That's an important distinction because rumors have a way of sounding bigger than they really are. At the end of the day, the Browns hold all the leverage. They don't have to make the move, and that puts them in a strong position. If another team makes an offer that genuinely improves the roster, Andrew Berry will probably listen. If that offer never comes, keeping a young quarterback with upside is far from a bad outcome. In a league where quarterback depth can disappear in one afternoon, having another capable option may end up being more valuable than a mid-round draft pick. And that's what makes this story worth following over the next few weeks. One strong preseason game could raise Gabriel's value. One injury around the league could create a new market. Or the Browns could decide that keeping him is the smartest move they can make. Whatever happens, this isn't just another offseason rumor anymore. It's one of the first major decisions that could shape Cleveland's quarterback room heading into the season. So, what do you think? If another team offered a third or fourth round pick for Dillon Gabriel tomorrow, would you make the trade? Or would you keep him and bet on his long-term potential in Cleveland? Let me know in the comments because this is one Browns debate that could look completely different by the end of training camp.